folks, Mark here again. For this week's lesson, we're going to be focusing in on our pitching as we take the fundamental skills of center contact, square contact, and our ability to control the bottom of our arc that we've discussed during previous lessons and apply it to that most lofted shot that we use when we have to go up and over something that may lie between us and the hole, be it some rough or a bunker. Typically, we're going to be using our most lofted club in our bag, which for many of you is going to be your 60-degree lob wedge, but for some of you it may be your 56-degree sand wedge. So please go get that most lofted club out of your bag, our modified cutting board from last time, and our welcome mat, and let's get to work. As we begin to look at the pitch shot, I do want to back up a little bit and just point out that in my mind, when we look at putting and chipping, those are very similar shots based on their characteristics. We have very quiet hands, and we're simply trying to run a square club face into the golf ball. The result with the putt is the line rolls end over end. The result with the chip shot is we get a little bit of a pop in the air, but really it's on the ground rolling almost immediately like a putt. Now when we transition into this additional loft with a lob wedge or sand wedge, once we get past 45 degrees, a lot of that energy that we've created during our backswing is going to cause the ball to go upwards as opposed to forwards. So we're going to need to make a longer swing. And now we're going to begin to see the characteristics of a full swing. So to me, pitching is much more of a mini full swing, whereas chipping is more of a putting motion. We still have to have the same focus of making sure that we make contact with the ground in a very similar spot. But again, because so much energy is causing the golf ball to go up, we're going to need to begin to see a little bit of hand and wrist action to help create more swing speed and more leverage to be able to get the golf ball to go forward a little bit more. So in doing that, we need to identify what is the correct motion of your hands and what is the incorrect motion. And again, I still feel the reason we struggle with this shot is because our hands are trying to do too much. We stand there, we see a bunker in front of us, we see some rough, or we see an elevated shot that we need to play, and we get a little panicked and our hands get a little too active. So in identifying correct versus incorrect wrist hinge in this pitch shot, if I put my hand out in front of me with my thumb up, correct wrist action is up and down hinging, okay? Incorrect is going to be back and forth, this sort of slapping motion, or if I put my hand down, this is going to be a scooping motion when your wrist extends back and then flexes forward. This motion here, we lose control over the loft, and then again we run the risk of potentially hitting the ground behind the golf ball or maybe scooping too fast and blading it. So we need to again understand what correct hinging is, hinging versus bending. So when we do introduce this bending back of our wrist, the club goes around behind us too quickly. Relative to the direction of the target back and forth along our target line, when the club goes around us too much, it's going to create a situation where either I'm going to need to get very wristy and now bend my forward lead wrist back, okay, which is going to get the club going around me again to the forward side too quickly. A lot of times we're going to blade the shot. Or I get back here and I get sort of stuck in a position where I'm forced to shove the club out, and now either I'm going to hit the ground inside of the golf ball, or I'm going to run the hosel into the ball and I'm going to hit one of those nasty shanks. So to help us understand the difference between hinging and bending, we're going to take two pop bottles, place them on the ground. First one's going to be just outside of the golf ball. The second one's going to be inside of the golf ball, in between your toe line and the golf ball. It's going to create a gate for us, similar to the idea with our putting. So this is going to create the acceptable space that we can use and the unacceptable space that we cannot use. So if my hands do get a little too active and I bend to the inside, creating this cupping motion, that's going to take the club to the inside. I'm going to have instant feedback. Very helpful. If I try to overcorrect and maybe try to push, now I've gone too far the other direction. So again, instant feedback. But if I take this club back and I hinge it, make my wrist go up, I can create that extra speed, I can create that extra momentum. Now I can make the golf ball go forward in still a relatively small swing. I still need to place it in the same spot. So again, contact's the same as we were working on with chipping, with that idea of controlling the bottom of your arc, so we can get down to the level of the golf ball once it's sitting in the grass. So we're going to get a little hinge up and back down. I made contact with the ground, right behind the golf ball, ball went up in the air because of that 60 degrees. So again, acceptable, little bit of wrist hinge up. And as you see right here, a thing to picture, two things, is the club head is outside of my hand line. When we're doing it incorrectly, the club head is inside of my hand line. If I drew a parallel line to my target line, outside my hands, inside my hands. Again, when my wrists take over, a lot of times the club twists open too. If you see my club face and the toe aiming that way, that club is extremely open. If I take it back and hinge it, and you can see the toe aiming that way, some of you may picture that as being shut, but that is square. So the less I open on the backswing, the less I have to shut on the downswing. So we're just simplifying the motion, creating a little bit of wrist set. And now I get the loft because I'm running 60 degrees into the club. Now here to my left, you can see I have these sticks that are supported by the baskets. You can create your own setup. But the idea is, if I have my 8-iron and I make that same swing, the result is the ball is going to be more along the ground. It's going to land before the sticks and roll underneath. Low running, low lofted shot. Go ahead and add my 60 degrees now. I've just added 30 degrees from my 7-iron up to my lob wedge, a little bit of wrist hinge. And now I get the golf ball elevated. It went over the sticks, adding that 60 degrees, okay? A little bit of body rotation as I swing. If we're looking just real quick to kind of connect a thought, when I was looking at my backswing here and the club head was outside of my hands, when we're looking at your follow through, as you come through, the club head's going to be outside of your hands for a period of time. Again, we don't want to flip the club the other direction and now get the club behind my hands over here. As I swing through, where my body is, if I turn and just put the club down, you would see the club still in front of me. I haven't flipped it past me, and I see myself in this angle. And then lastly, just as, again, an extension of your practice station, I put a laundry basket here. When I was a kid, middle school, high school, and I was stuck inside during the winter, a lot of times I'd put a laundry basket, so I would just focus my attention in on a target so that I have some context of what I'm doing here relative to a very specific spot I want to land the ball. Because when we get on the golf course in spring and summer, we need to be that specific in what we're doing here with this shot. It needs to land in a very specific spot relative to the target. So most of these pitch shots, that is going to lay about halfway between the golf ball and the hole as far as our landing spot. So again, acceptable amount of hinge. I've got my gate set up so I know where I'm at. A little bit of body rotation, and we're hitting a nice pitch shot. So we have an understanding of how to correctly use our hands in this shot. Plus, we're well on our way now to our takeaway on our full swing so that we're not sucking the club to the inside with incorrect wrist hinge on a full swing. A lot of us that struggle with this, with our short shots, we're going to see it in our full swing. So this is that jumping off point for our full swing. So again, working hard with these ideas, have fun, stay warm, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time when we start to dive into our full swing.